Chapter 1: The Man Who Owns the Room. The air in the grand ballroom of the Blackwood Plaza didn't feel like oxygen. It felt like expensive cologne, vintage champagne, and the suffocating weight of money I didn't have. I adjusted the strap of my emerald silk dress, a consignment shop find that I'd spent my last $300 on. If this didn't work, if I didn't get 5 minutes with the man at the center of this circus, I wasn't just broke. I was homeless. Deep breaths, Maya, I whispered to myself, smoothing the fabric over my hips. I looked around the room. It was a sea of tuxedos and diamonds, but everyone was facing the same direction. It was like they were iron filings, and he was the magnet. Alexander Blackwood. He stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, framed by the glowing skyline of the city he essentially owned. He was taller than the men surrounding him, his silhouette sharp in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my college education. He wasn't smiling. Alexander Blackwood didn't need to be charming, he was powerful, and in this world, power was the only currency that never devalued. Even from across the room, I could feel the gravity of his presence. It was a physical pull, a dark, magnetic hum that made the hair on my arms stand up. "He doesn't take unsolicited pitches, you know," a voice said beside me. I turned to see a waiter offering a tray. I took a glass of champagne. I didn't want just to have something to do with my hands. "I'm not here to pitch. I'm here to reclaim something." The waiter gave me a look of pure pity and moved on. I set my jaw. My father's company had been gutted by Blackwood's venture capital firm in a hostile takeover that was more like a public execution. Now, with the medical bills piling up and the bank knocking on my door, I had one card left to play: an oversight in the merger contract, a glitch in the Blackwood machine. I began to move through the crowd. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. As I got closer, the circle of people around him seemed to thin, not because they were leaving, but because they were afraid to stand too close. I watched as a CEO of a major tech firm tried to shake his hand. Alexander didn't take it. He simply nodded, his expression cold and unreadable, and the tech CEO scurried away looking like he'd been slapped. Then Alexander turned his head. His eyes were the color of a winter sea, stormy, gray, and dangerously deep. They swept over the room with clinical boredom until they landed on me. The world stopped. The noise of the orchestra, the clinking of glasses, the hum of gossip, it all fell into a vacuum. He didn't look away. Most people flinched under that gaze. I didn't. I held it, my chin tilted up, letting him see every ounce of the defiance I was using to mask my terror. His eyebrows rose a fraction of an inch. It was the most emotion anyone had seen from him all night. I stepped into his space, breaking the invisible barrier no one else dared to cross. "Mr. Blackwood," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He looked me down, then up, his gaze lingering on the curve of my neck before returning to my eyes. A slow, predatory heat flickered in those gray depths. "I don't believe you're on the guest list," he said. His voice was a rich, low baritone that vibrated right through my chest. "I'm not," I replied. "I'm the mistake you forgot to bury." Alexander POV. Boredom was a familiar weight. I spent my life surrounded by people who wanted something from me: money, influence, a moment of my time. They all smelled the same, desperation masked by expensive perfume. I was ready to leave when I felt it, a shift in the room's energy. I turned my head and saw her. She was wearing a dress the color of envy, but it was her eyes that caught me. They weren't filled with the usual sycophantic awe. They were filled with fire, pure, unadulterated defiance. She was walking toward me, cutting through the crowd like a blade. She was young, far too beautiful for her own good, and clearly out of her element, yet she moved with the grace of someone who had nothing left to lose. When she reached me, I expected a stuttered introduction. Instead, she stood her ground. Up close, she smelled like jasmine and something sharp, something real. "I don't believe you're on the guest list," I told her. I wanted to see if she'd crumble. "I'm not," she said, her voice like silk over gravel. "I'm the mistake you forgot to bury." I felt a sudden, sharp jolt of interest. It had been years since someone had the audacity to speak to me like that. My gaze dropped to her lips, red, full, and trembling just slightly. She was terrified, but she was standing there anyway. I took a step closer, intentionally invading her personal space. Most people backed away. She stayed rooted to the spot, though I saw her pulse jumping in the hollow of her throat. "Is that so?" I leaned down, my voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her. "I don't make mistakes, miss." Sterling, Maya Sterling. The name registered. Sterling, the small firm we'd absorbed last month. A clean kill, or so I thought. I let my eyes wander over her again, slower this time. She was breathtaking in her anger. My blood, usually cold and calculated, began to stir with a primitive kind of hunger. I didn't just want to know what mistake she was talking about. I wanted to see how long it would take to break that defiance. "Well, Miss Sterling," I said, my hand reaching out to catch a stray lock of her hair, my fingers barely brushing the heat of her skin. "You have exactly 60 seconds before security removes you. Make them count."